Hi, I want a YCS Richmond VIP qualifier with Killer Tune, but because I'm a VTuber, it's kind of difficult to do a deck profile. So we're doing it on Dueling Book. Alright, cry. I'm gonna double this video as an explanation guide for Killer Tune, sort of like a small explanation thing. I'm not gonna go too deep into theory, but also because I've really wanted to make one of these for a while, because I've done this for Infernoble, I've done a lot for Infernoble, but I've never really done this for KT. And I really want to because I really love this deck. This deck is the whole reason why I'm still playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh yeah, by the way, the matchups for this deck were Branded DT, round 1, which I lost. Round 2 was Yummy, which, I mean, you're KT, you should always win that. And then round 3, it was Pure DT, which I also won by some fucking miracle. And final round was K9 VS. And I could have sworn it was K9 Crystron, but apparently it was K9 VS because, I was literally playing against fucking VS for the majority of game 3. Like game 2, I cut them off their K9 engine completely, and game 1 was unga bunga. Alright, so we have 3 Clip, 3 Rico, 3 Q, and 3 Mix. We have Clip as our Phimena. She can summon herself from the hand and then immediately conduct a synchro summon. Very important to note that she can use one material from the hand, like one tuner monster, as one of the other materials from the hand. And this is true for all of the killer tunes. They can all use a single tuner from the hand as one of the other materials, which is very important, otherwise this deck wouldn't be as good as it is. This applies to all killer tunes with the exception of Red Seal and Remix, which is very, very important because if you try to go into something like a Loudness War, for example, using a tuner from your hand, using either of these two, you won't be able to. But Trackmaker can. So, that's something important for you to note if you do want to, you know the deck inside out. But anyway, back to the things. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. So Clip is our Phimena. She summons herself, and then she conducts a quick synchro summon using a tuner in the hand. At which point, once she hits the graveyard as synchro material, she is also able to banish a one random face down card from your opponent's extra deck face up. What this means is you can't banish, let's say, a pendulum monster that's face up on your opponent's extra deck. It needs to be a card that's face down in there, and then it gets banished again face up. So that's all that means. There was a little bit of confusion about that at the start of the format, but people are getting more familiar. So if you aren't familiar with that already, there you go. Very, very simple. I should also note right now that all of the cool tunes need to hit the graveyard in order to use their effects and their material effects, which is why Shifter and Retaliating Sea hurt this deck as bad as they do. Rico and Mix, two counterparts. Rico searches from the deck or from the graveyard a non-level 3. Mix searches from the deck or grave a non-level 2. If Rico goes into the graveyard as material, she pops a spell or trap. If Mix goes into the graveyard as material, she pops a monster. Very, very simple. Extremely simple. These are also excellent for recursion because they can recycle back your extra deck monsters from the graveyard if you've used up a bunch of them like very late into the grind game. And also very important to note that whenever you can, I would highly recommend adding back from the graveyard as opposed to from the deck, as it allows you to play around Droll better. And also it's just better for conserving resources in the long run because you will sometimes, like in a very, very heavy grind game situation, you'll use your monster names in order to try to search things or like to put things back from the graveyard into the extra deck, like boss monster wise. So that does something that is something that comes up, but not, very, very frequently. Q is our best starter. She can E-tally one from hand, deck, or grave. And if she's sent as material, she can look at the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck, banish one, and put the other on the top or on the bottom, which is how you stack your opponent in situations where they brick, and, it's how you basically control the grind game. Q is amazing for that. And she can also E-tally out Red Nova, and because she can E-tally out any tuner, it actually makes it extremely important because you can modify your lines to break your opponent's board as you see fit. So Q is by far the best starter that we have in this deck, in my opinion. Overtake, in my opinion, serves a different function than Q does, but I'll get into it once I get into Overtake. But that's what all of the main deck monsters do. Moving on to the spells. KT Synchro, add a KT card from your deck to your hand and perform a Synchro Summon on Resolution. Very important, and it's a KT card, right? You can add Juke Join off of this, which is very, very important. Don't ever forget that you can add Juke Join off of this because there are games where it will come up, right? Especially if you open 2 of these. You don't need to add a monster. You can just add Juke Join and then dodge an effect by synchroing 2 on the field, or like 1 in the field, 1 in the hand. But insane card. Also helps you dodge Retaliating Sea very, very nicely. If you normal summon Mix, or if you go Q, or if you already have like a pre-established board, like if you normal summon Q and they go Imperm, for example, and you don't have any way to extend, you go Overtake, the chain Retaliating C, you chain KT Synchro, you make Remix, the materials will hit the graveyard before Retaliating C has a chance to summon, and then you can insta-pop the Retaliating C, and, you know, your plays will continue unbothered, pretty much. But again, I'm getting off track. Juke Joint. A little bit more text than the other ones. So, an additional normal summon, and you can also tribute off a cool tune from, or not a cool tune, I'm sorry, a tuner, and you can either add to your hand or special summon one cool tune monster from your deck, and this also locks you. Let's clear this up right now. The only cards that lock you in this deck are Q, Juke Joint, and Cool Tune Synchro. So Clip, Rico, and Mix, they don't lock you. So in the event that, you know, you have Bestials or Gamma or whatever, and you want to use them before you get locked, just keep that in mind. There are only 3 cards in this deck that lock you. Juke Joint also boosts Loudness War to 33 once your opponent has a tuner in their field or graveyard, which is also important. It does come up for OTK lines, keep that in mind. And yeah, 3 effects of Juke Joint. The 3 effects of Juke Joint. Very, very detailed card. Also, if you're wondering why I'm calling it Juke Joint instead of JJ, Juke Joint was its full name before it got shrunk down. This deck got done extremely dirty when it comes to name shrinking, and I'm still, you know, quite angry about it. But anyway, moving on. Overtake. This is an OTK card more than anything else. Although I do value this as a starter, this functions very, very well to bait hand traps, to extend past interruptions. I personally see Overtake. If I see Overtake going second, I get extremely happy, because if I open a bunch of other hand traps, Overtake is essentially a 1-card OTK, which I will show you guys how to do later, because at this point, I'm going to be running this for pretty much the entirety of the format leading up to Blazing Dominion. So, it's slowly becoming more and more common knowledge. So if you're a new KT pilot, I personally feel like this is a very essential combo line that you do need to know. So I'll be showing that at the end. But Synchro Overtake is our OTK card. Very important that you can also, that you can either E-Telly or you can add it to hand. The reason why I keep mentioning this is because this helps you play around Fualos. So if you go Overtake and they chain Fua, you don't have to, you know, E-Telly, right? You can just reveal Mix, grab Mix back to hand, normal the Mix, grab the Rico, and then if you have 4 other hand traps in hand, you give them 1 draw and you're fine, right? You've essentially just given them 1 Fua draw. Or you can also play Mistaken Arrest or Droll, depending on, you know, what opening hand you have. But again, the thing that I appreciate about these 2 cards is that they give you avenues to play around Mulcharmies. And then Red Nova as the final kind of like non-hand trap piece of the deck. You will need this up to Blazing Dominion. After Blazing Dominion, Red Nova is essentially obsolete. You don't need it anymore. You will need to modify the 1-card combo with Q in order to end on the same end board, but it's functionally the same, if not ever so slightly better. So yeah. Now moving on, this was like the main engine. I only run one Juke Joint, by the way. I don't see the need for any extras, nor do I see the need for Cool Tune playlist. I personally want to see as many hand traps as possible, and I've also built my extra deck to synergize with a lot of the hand traps that we might see as a result, and that's kind of like my theory with it, right? I don't like Desires, I don't like Prosperity, I don't like Called By, I don't like Talents. It's too much, you know? This deck has the absolute luxury of being able to play 20 pieces of hand traps, 20 pieces of non-engine, or 20 hand traps. No, not 20 pieces of non-engine, 20 hand traps. What am I saying? Obviously, we can have differing ideologies about the deck, you know? But in my opinion, like in my testing, this is the most optimal way to play it. Your chances for drawing a starter in this list with these ratios are about 98%, if I remember correctly. 98.1, 98.5, something along those lines. And then the chances of you drawing a hand trap as well as a starter are also ridiculously high. It's similar to that number, but I don't remember the exact thing. I don't have the calcs on me right now. But very important to note that I personally think your consistency is fine as it is, in the event that you brick your opponent's not playing the game either, because you would have drawn all non-engine, right? And then even if you draw like Gamma and like Delta, for example, right? Or if you draw Clip plus Gamma or Clip plus Delta, you can still get started on your plays, right? That's not a big deal. That's my kind of what's it called? That's my how the fuck do I say this? My theory on Killer Tune. Best played as pure with a ton of hand traps, right? Bully your opponent. 3 Ash, 3 Bell, 3 Fua, I feel like is mandatory. as well as 3 Valor, because Valor doubles as kind of like a pseudo Red Nova in the event where you open Q gets stopped. You can use Q plus Valor in hand in order to make a track maker. It's also why you need to play multiple track makers. I'll get into that in a little bit, but you need to play the Valor in order to synergize with the Q and the Rico. They allow you to get into track maker, and they also unbreak your hand. That's like the main reason why Valor's here. Also, Valor is just good for absolutely cooking Draco Tail. Like, right, like you stop the Orthalion, it's absolutely amazing. Ogre. You can swap Ogre for Mourner, technically. The reason why I personally like Ogre more is because Ogre, like against K9 VS. So let me just say this: this deck isn't dead versus K9 VS, right? Not at all. This deck is extremely pilot dependent and also extremely, you know, it's pilot dependent. I'm just gonna put it like that, and it can go the grind game with K9 VS, absolutely, right? This isn't just dead. Like, if you see your opponents on K9 VS across from you, you're not gone, right? You need to save your hand traps for, like, the appropriate places on, like, to interrupt them depending on what their combo is. But one of the things that Ogre is actually very good at doing is it's good at clearing the field spell, right? Because, in the, like, a lot of decks, or not a lot of decks, but, like, there are quite a few decks that struggle to out the VS field spell, and Ogre just absolutely excels at that. But it's not only that, right? You can also hit SP on your own turn. You can hit IP on your own turn. You can hit the Duo Drive versus Ryzeal Onomat, which is actually very, very relevant because Duo Drive doesn't detach as part of its cost. So if you blow it up off the field before the effect gets a chance to resolve, they're not going to be able to resolve it if Duo Drive is their first action. It also helps versus K9 VS in the sense where you can Ogre the VS cards, like Razin, for example, when they attempt to blow up a column, right? One of the things that you can do is if they normal summon a Razin into your remix column in order to blow it up, you can Ogre the Razin, and they either have to let the Razin die, or they have to bounce the Razin with one of their own cards in order to keep the resource. But either way, the effect to reveal, you get hand knowledge, and at the same time you stop them from interrupting it, right? You get hand knowledge because, you know, they try to activate it thinking it's going to resolve, and then it's self-explanatory. Why am I explaining this? But yeah, Ogre, interchangeable with Mourner because it completes the same function that Valor does, but I personally like Ogre way more right now. It's also, like, just unexpected. Who the fuck expects Ogre, right? You can hit, like, continuous spells, obviously. You can also hit the continuous traps, but you can also hit the field spells. I just like Ogre a lot. And I've had more success with Ogre than I've had with Mourner, so Ogre is in here. All right, Cry. Now we have the Bystials and the what's it called? The Psy-Frames. So I play 1 Baldric, Druiswar, Magnamut, and then I play 1 Gamma, 1 Delta, 1 Driver. You can technically substitute Delta for what the fuck is it called? The other Psy-Frame that hits traps. Epsilon. Delta is better when your opponent's going first, because Delta can stop things like Rahu and Ketu. Like, if you open Ash plus Delta, you can stop both of their, like, adds and summoning spells, which is really, really good. It can stop the Vanquish Soul Start. It can also stop, Obedience Schooled. There's a lot of stuff that Delta can stop that, like, you know, warrants playing it going first. But if you want to be less aggressive, more defensive, Epsilon is the better option. I'll explain why. So with Gamma is really good because if you go draw phase KTS, or if you do Synchro Overtake as your first action, and their response is to Perouthi or Fua you, you can chain the Gamma, and you can set up a way to protect your monsters from Imperm Valor and Mourner, which I'll talk about in a bit, you know, once we get to the extra deck. But that makes Gamma extremely, extremely good for that as a defensive option, but also as an offensive option because, you know, Gamma is obviously Gamma. It negates and destroys at the same time. You know, that's insane. But Epsilon is good for the Dominus cards specifically, right? It's the same thing. If you go Overtake or KTS and they chain a Dominus, right? If they go Purge or Impulse, you chain Epsilon, you negate it, and then now you have the exact same function that Gamma does. Honestly, in theory, I prefer Epsilon to Delta because offensive-wise, I think we're good on that. I didn't really see any situation where Delta would have benefited me massively, but I have ran into multiple situations where Epsilon would have saved my life. So if there's any change I would make to this deck main deck wise, is I would remove the Delta and put in the Epsilon, but that's it. And also these 6 cards function as like the kind of the level 8 engine package thing. And what I mean by that is you can use all these to go into the level 8 synchros and the level 10 synchro that we play. The Excel Synchro Stardust, the Stardust, and the Patter. You know, these are like a little package for them, which is quite good. I'll explain how this synergizes well in a bit. But yeah, this is the entirety of the main deck. Let's move on to the extra deck before we go on to the side. 3 Red Seal. I do this because of Yummy specifically, because Yummy tends to want to out Red Seal as aggressively as possible. And in the event that they don't, you know, scoop as soon as Red Seal hits the board because they see that, you know, they don't have very many outs, they will want to, you know, try to go on to the grind game, which is why, again, these effects to you know, bring, to cycle back your monsters are very important. Also, on that topic, Q can actually revive. Q can revive a tuner from your hand, deck, or graveyard, which means Q can actually revive these guys because they're also tuners. Q can revive Loudness War, Remix, Trackmaker, or Red Seal. So in the event where, like, you know, you normal summon the Q and you don't really have anything else to go into, just revive a boss monster from your graveyard. You know, that's something that not a lot of people think about. It's actually very, very cool because there's no restriction here. It just says special summon 1 tuner from your hand, deck, or graveyard except Cool Tune Q, right? These are tuners. These were properly summoned. Have fun. But yeah, Red Seal at 3, I like this a lot. I wouldn't change it. I have had multiple games where I've ran through all 3 Red Seals, right? And especially against Yummy, I've had a lot of cases where 2 Red Seals would have meant the death of me because I wouldn't have been able to get into the 3rd one, right? And I didn't have access to Q. Trackmaker at 3. The reason why you want Trackmaker at 3, first of all, is because you need targets for Loudness War to bounce, but also because Trackmaker can help you unbreak from a weird situation. So Rico and Hugh, for example, right? If either of them gets stopped and you have the Veiler in the hand, you can make the Trackmaker, or even better with Clip, right? With Clip and Delta, you can make the Trackmaker, you add the Field Spell Tribute off the Trackmaker, and then search the Q and normal the Q because you get an additional normal off the Field Spell, and then you could go into your full combo. That is the only line that dies to Nib that you will like actively use besides Synchro Overtake, and even then Synchro Overtake shouldn't die to Nib. So all the YouTubers, I almost said VTubers, all the YouTubers who are saying this deck dies to Nib don't know what they're talking about in a very, very literal sense. This deck doesn't give a shit about Nib. This deck also most of the time doesn't give a shit about Droll, right? Because they can all add back from the deck or the graveyard. The first turn is realistically the only place where Droll heavily matters, because if you open something that doesn't give you access to like an E-Tally or a way to, or like KTS, for example, then Droll might be a problem. You know, Droll might just be a problem. But generally speaking, this deck doesn't have a problem with Droll or Nib. You know, I'm going to be perfectly blunt. Anybody who's saying that this deck dies to Droll or Nib hasn't explored this deck enough. Right? They don't know what they're talking about in a very, very blunt sense. It's lunacy. So after that, after the Trackmaker, we have Remix. We play 2 for one very specific reason. You make Remix turn 0 very, very often. Remix should be a part of your end board turn 0. But Remix is something that you also need for Synchro Overtake. So if you go turn... It's part of the OTK line for Synchro Overtake. So basically... if you summon a Remix first, you always want to have one in your extra deck just as a Synchro Overtake target to get a mix onto your side of the field. And also sometimes, like in the grind game, the Remix does come up. If you clear out your opponent's board but you can't quite kill them, it is a valid play to like destroy everything, then set a Remix out onto the board and then try to punch your opponent with it, because Remix does gain attack bait. Like, it's similar to Loudness War, like, and Juke Joint in the sense where Remix gains attack if your opponent has a tuner in the field or graveyard. She goes up to 3k, which is quite significant. So you can, if your opponent has a tuner in the grave, summon a Remix, punch with her, and then pass, and then you have your Remix interruptions going like into the next turn, which is absolutely insane. Insane card. I really like her, but you don't need more than 2. Same with Loudness War. Loudness War, there is a justification to play 3 because there are certain lines in which you, or like certain lines or scenarios in which you want to make 2. The reason being is because, like, you might know that Loudness War protects your tuners from getting targeted by card effects or destroyed by card effects. But what a lot of people don't realize is that if you put 2 Loudness Wars on the board, it forms a blanket protection against both popping and negation. So you can't target or pop any tuners on the field anymore with Loudness War while Loudness War exists, which means that your plays are essentially almost fully safe and insulated, right? And this does come up quite a bit because the only way you can clear these is beating over a 3k body or non-target banish or non-target bounce, right? Which there aren't very many. Obviously Detail has their non-target negate with Malulu, but that only clears, you know, one of the Loudness Wars, right? The other Loudness War is still on the board protecting your Red Seal or your Remix or whatever the hell else you have. So for that reason, it's mandatory to play at very least 2. If you value the protection and you think that this is going to come up for you a lot more in the grind games, push this to 3. But 2, especially with the kind of recursion you have with your main deck monsters, I don't think you need more than 2 personally. I've never went through more than 2 in all of my testing. So that's why this is at 2. Extra deck. So a lot of people see Dispatter in this, but they don't quite know how to make it, right? The simple answer is you cannot make this unless you run Bestials or the Psy-frames, right? As far as I know. So the way this works is you use a Bestial plus a level 2, or obviously, or like one of these guys once you summon them out in order to go up into Excel revive, and then if you want you could tag into Stardust to make this unaffected and then go into Patter. The reason why this is so good, I'll explain why, especially against Mewtwo. This is extremely relevant against Mewtwo, and I'll explain why. If you open a Bestial versus Mewtwo, you hold it until Habakiri hits the, what the fuck is it called? Murakumo, sorry, Jesus. You wait until Murakumo hits the graveyard, you banish out the Murakumo with the Bestial, and you're probably going to get to keep it because the board wipe's no longer live, right? Then when they pass back to you, you summon out the level 2, and so you summon out the level 2 with either Overtake or you normal it, and then if they don't stop you there, you immediately go up into Excel effect to revive, and then you go up into Patter, and Patter revives the banished Murakumo. Murakumo wipes their board, and then you also get the negate, you get 2 negates. You get the Spatter negate, and then you also get the Murakumo negate, which is insane, and that it means you're OTKing every time, right? It means you will OTK them every single time, right? Especially after the board gets wiped, because you have a way to negate whatever the hell else they throw at you, right? So that plays insane. If you can resolve that versus Mitsu, it's over. That's one of the things that allowed me to take a lot of Mewtwo games is this very specific sequence, and for that I love the Bestials. But also it's just good for, you know, blanking, like you can banish a Malulu, especially like moving forward after this ban list, because Malulu is going to be at 1. Banishing the Malulu is going to be very, very good for you. And then this. So Prime Heart is our OTK card. Prime Heart, if you make him with 3 tuners, there is a line. I'll show you the line to make Prime Heart. Don't worry, I'll explain. Prime Heart can punch for 3k a grand total of 3 times, which means if your opponent's got a clear board, which they should because of all the effects that you're going to use to remove cards off their board going up into Prime Heart, he's fucked, right? Your opponent, they're absolutely fucked, because he's gonna be big, he's gonna attack multiple times, and he's gonna absolutely cook your opponent, right? He is so fucked. Like, Prime Heart as a card is so fucking absurd. I'm sorry, I'm cursing a lot. I love Prime Heart. Prime Heart's insane. And after that, we have Typhon. Typhon, the Sky Crisis. I've made him... I haven't made him. I can't lie to you. I have not made Typhon, like, ever. Raigekis, super generic. Honestly, this was... these never came up, man. These were so fucking ass. They never came up. Moving forward, I think I'd like to pivot to non-fusionary or Gravity Collapse, just because for the next format we're going to be dealing with a lot of Draco Tail and Branded. A lot of very, very powerful fusion decks that this deck doesn't really have a clean answer to, so non-fusion area would be good. Lancias are also coming out. Lancias are here mostly for Malice and Lunalite, also because Retaliating C fucking sucks. And so does Shifter, and so does Fisher. Like, they all fucking hurt. This is why Lancia is in here. Lancia is here not for offense, but for defense, rather. And then Nib is Nib, obviously. Peroulia is here because it's Peroulia. Need I say more? Droll is also here. Funny enough, I was running Droll at 2 before the list even hit, so nothing much changes. Droll is Droll, obviously, and Rose Whip. This, you E-Telly off of Q, and there are combos in which you can make Remix, use the Rose Whip as part of your combo, keep the Rose Whip in the graveyard. So Rose Whip is like summon limit in the sense where it doesn't count as long, like it doesn't start counting when it hits the board. It counts for like the entire turn, right? So like if your opponent activates pre-prep and then they add, you go remix and you revive the Rose Whip, and then all their spells are dead because they can't activate, because since they've already activated one this turn. Remix reviving Rose Whip is one of the most nasty things you could do to an opponent, I can't lie. But I will let you find out that line for yourself, because experimentation with decks is good, you know. You'll learn the deck better if you do. But I will show you the OTK line. The OTK line is essential for playing the deck, and I will show you that one. So without further ado, let me show you how to make someone cry. Alright, I don't have this as a replay, so we're going to do this live. Also, I want to flex that. I want to flex that real quick. Alright, so we're going to do this live. So, activate overtake. You're going to want to reveal your remix. And you're going to want to go into the deck and summon out the mix. You activate the effect of mix in order to add the Rico to the hand. And then you're going to normal summon the Rico. And then you're going to use the Rico's effect in order to search for yourself for a Killer Tune clip. After you add the clip, you're going to use the clip with the mix. With the mix. In order to go into the track maker, which is summon number 3. At that point, you're going to activate the track maker in order to search for a cool tune Q. And mind you also activate the effects if they have anything, right? You use mix to pop, clip to rip, and then at this point you go 1, 2, 3, summon number 4, but bam, Prime Heart. You pop a spell, a trap, you bounce something, and then you stack the top of the deck in the event that this gets stopped. And then Prime Heart can attack 3 times because we use 3 tuners. 1, 2, 3. Is this legal summon? Nothing has locked us. We've now used Q's normal summon effect, and Synchro Overtake doesn't do anything for locking. Prime Heart, as you guys also know, Mix, Rico, and Clip don't lock you either because I've told you this. And then Prime Heart states that you can use a light monster. The only requirement is that it's 1+ tuners, 1 or more tuners, and 1 light monster, of which we have 2. So Prime Heart's completely legal here, and then you can punch 3 times, and then that's game. Ta-da! But yeah, there you go. That's the Killer Tune OTK line. I might as well show you the Essential line as well. This is just going to be necessary if you're going to be playing the deck in any capacity. So this is mostly just for the new people. If you're already new, or like if you already know the deck, then you probably already know this line, so feel free to click away. That's going to be pretty much it for like the video in terms of like, you know, deck breakdown and theory and shit. But if you want to know and you're new to the deck, here you go, I got you. So your best opener is if you start with Q, right? You go normal Q, use Q effect to E-tally out the red Nova, go 1, 2, 1, 2 for the track maker. Track maker 1, red Nova 2, Q3, summon out Rico, take a peek at their hand, summon out Rico, and then grab the Cool Tune Synchro. Use Rico's effect in order to add the clip. And then from here, you don't do anything else because this is 4 summons. This is why so many people think the game, or not the game, the deck dies to nib, because they don't think. Right? Why would you ever... What is Cool Tune Synchro? What does Cool Tune Synchro allow you to do, right? It's a quick play spell. What does it allow you to do? It allows you to search and then conduct a Synchro Summon, which means it's a quick play. You can use it in the end phase, which means you can dodge nib, right? At 4 summons, you're going to want to pass, or not pass, you're going to want to go to end phase, and in end phase, fire off the Cool Tune Synchro, grab yourself the mix, and then you want to go mix plus Rico in order to go up into your remix. And then from here, you have all your interruptions available to you, right? 5th summon done in the end phase to dodge nib. Remix can bring back Mix and Rico in order to pop 2, and then to dodge like a targeting thing. Dodge a targeting effect, pop 2, and then go up into an Omni Negate. And then you have the clip in order to go off with the track maker in order to go up and to make Loudness War. So just off of this combo alone, you have target dodge with Remix, spell and trap pop plus Omni Negate. That's 3. 3 pieces of interaction, extra deck rip plus a non-target bounce. That's 4 pieces. That's 5 pieces of interaction. Blanket protection and a bound, and either a spell and trap pop, monster pop, or a non-target bounce, or a deck stack, or an extra deck rip. That's 6. And then you also have blanket protection and a floodgate, all off of 1 card, by the way. Granted, this isn't going to do a whole lot against link decks. Against link decks, you're going to have to use your brain a little bit more and like hit them where it hurts, and like fusion decks as well. But against Synchro and XYZ decks, you inherently have an advantage because of, you know, your effects. Minus K9 VS because obviously all the K9 cards are very, very fat. But yeah, that's going to be it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, etc, etc, etc. I hope you enjoyed learning about KT from a VTuber, right? I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.